counties lost roads and bridges, and homeowners suffered damage to their homes in rising water. Already the rainfall this spring has South Dakotans looking toward the federal government for relief from Mother Nature. The Federal Emergency Management Agency, or FEMA, has people in South Dakota this week surveying damage already caused by the spring storms. Governor Bill Janklow says he's glad they are here and they don't have far to look to find damage from the rain.
I flew up to Aberdeen last evening for an announcement of a new business, and as we broke through the clouds at about 1,900, 2,000 feet, northeast of Aberdeen, there was honestly more water than there was land in sight. I'm 55 years old and I've never seen anything like this. I mean, seriously, I've never seen anything like this. It literally looks like the Florida Everglades without the vegetation.
Farmers are finding it nearly impossible to plant a crop this spring, and every day more eastern South Dakota counties declare a local disaster. Well, wetlands are places where there is sometimes or often a small pond. Government restrictions keep farmers from draining those wetlands in order to provide a habitat for wildlife. And as you might expect, those regulations are not popular with many farmers. But as John Austin found out today, the abundance of wetlands this year might be keeping the prairie from flooding worse than it is.
The federal government has contracted over 8,000 wetland preservation easements with South Dakota farmers, 75% of them on small sloughs and marshes, dry more years than wet. To remain qualified for the federal farm program, producers can farm the ground when they can, but they may not dig ditches to drain the wetlands in an effort to get an earlier start on planting. Recent decisions by ag and environmental officials to relax regulations are getting understandably high marks from politicians and producers hard-pressed by this wet spring.
Farmers are stewards of the soil, and they're not going to be, there's areas that you can drain, that you can farm without any problem. Some of this wetland out there that they farm 8 out of 10 years doesn't raise any ducks on it anyway, and probably should have never been wetland.
We're not just talking about ducks. We're talking about the watersheds and the ability of those watersheds to store water. The place a watershed stores water is in wetlands. You drain the wetlands and you create flooding. You don't prevent flooding by draining wetlands.
It's a lose-lose and rather than a win-win situation.
Farmer and former Brookings County Commissioner Don Larson carries his share of political bruises caused by the wetlands issue, but still hopes the majority of the current program will survive the '95 Congress.
The thing of it is that we have to sit down as people involved in agriculture and also people involved in the environmental preservation of our country and work together so that we can facilitate any kind of a wetland or restoration preservation program. It also has its amenities and fits in with a modern agricultural system that we have today.
The U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service is working with farmers and the Ag Department to determine where short-term ditching and other temporary drainage solutions may be possible. Farmers with questions are urged to contact Consolidated Farm Services. In southern Brookings County, John Austin, News 5.
Tourism is South Dakota's second largest industry, second only to agriculture in new money brought into the state. But according to the White House Office of U.S. Travel and Tourism, there is even more South Dakota could do to bring those tourists in. Beth Fuller has the story on how the government reached out to lend a hand of expertise.
Your eyes on?
Each year, more than 200,000 people visit the Great Plains Zoo and Delbridge Museum. Today, Undersecretary of Commerce for Travel Greg Farmer was one of them. Sioux Falls is just one stop on his cross-country tour. He's been giving cities and states ways they can attract more tourists.
This is an industry about jobs. We're the second largest employer in America. Every 2.5 seconds in the world, a new job is created in the travel and tourism industry.
Farmer says the good news is South Dakota doesn't have a bad image among tourists, but he says the state needs to work hard at promotion and raising awareness of what it has to offer.
Conferences like we're having today to look at 9 areas, everything from product development to research to the way we market ourselves, bring the industry together with the public sector to say, how do we show off what's so great about this area?
He says states and regions should aim for international travelers coming from Europe and Asia, but cities like Sioux Falls should think domestic. Terry Ellis from the Sioux Falls Area Chamber of Commerce agrees agrees. She says the city has a lot to offer visitors.
People are on their way to the Black Hills, and what Sioux Falls has to continue to do more aggressively all the time is educate those travelers before they ever leave home that Sioux Falls is the best place to stop on the way west, and that we're a perfect one-day's drive.
Farmer says highlighting destinations like Sioux Falls is the key to successful tourism, because the more places travelers stop in the state, the more money they bring in. In Sioux Falls, Beth Fuller, News 5.
The Brookings County Commission today cleared the way for construction of a new $30 million soybean processing plant near Volga. The board voted 3-0 to change the Volga plant site zoning to commercial. 2 of the Brookings County commissioners are stockholders in that proposed plant. They both abstained from the voting. The South Dakota Soybean Processors Cooperative plans to employ up to 70 people at the plant when it's finished, possibly by next year. The plant will crush soybeans and turn the raw products into soybean meal and oil to enhance their value in marketing. Well, coming up, some dramatic home video from 2 different states as severe weather plagues the Midwest. Next on News 5. Into the river. The body has not been found yet, and now Bell says the police forced him to falsely confess. At the time of Gina's disappearance, Bell lived in her neighborhood. In the OJ Simpson double murder trial, today, prosecution professor of DNA was back on the stand explaining to the jury how DNA works in identifying a criminal suspect or a victim. But there was also an unusual development today, the blood of a still unidentified person inside Simpson's Bronco. John Gibson has the story.
Testimony, there are only 2 particular samples that are involved.
Up until now, the prosecution has said that O.J. Simpson's blood is mixed with the blood of both victims inside his Bronco. But now prosecutors have admitted there is also the blood of someone other than victims Ron Goldman and Nicole Brown Simpson.
Frankly, that stain is a little bit different than the others as well, because while consistent with Mr. Simpson, there's obviously another contributor that is not directly related or may not be directly related to this case on the steering wheel.
Strangely, no screams from the defense table yet, though it seems likely they will seize on this result and perhaps link it to their theory of a mystery killer. The mystery blood aside, in testimony today, DNA expert Robin Cotton showed the jury auto-radiographs, pictures on film of the test results. But the actual DNA test results were held back until tomorrow. Instead, the jury got a lot of the prosecution's main point, that just like the Mounties, DNA always gets its man or woman.
There is no environmental force, there is no environmental effect that can work to simply change one type and make it become another.
District Attorney Gil Garcetti said today he believes this DNA evidence is getting through to the jury.
But you always rely, as you do perhaps in any case, on 1, 2, 3 or more jurors who are going to be able to help others get through the process during deliberations.
Another type of crime closer to home. A Brant, South Dakota man pleaded guilty this week in federal court to charges related to tampering with automobile odometers. 35-year-old Stephen Paul Burnt admitted altering the mileage readings on 66 different cars, then mailing the car titles showing the lower odometer readings to the Department of Motor Vehicles. Federal prosecutors say the loss to consumers amounted to more than $119,000 overall. Burnt now faces up to 5 years in prison and a $250,000 fine, or both, for the scam. He will receive sentence on August 7th. One day a year, several Sioux Falls teachers move over in the classroom to let people from the community come in to become teachers for a day. So today, hundreds of kids found they had a new face helping them learn about reading, writing, and arithmetic and other things too. Cammie Melton has the story.
Instead of clipping on a microphone today, Sherry Kurtz pulled up a chair and taught some Axtell Park middle schoolers what it's like to be a KDLT anchor woman. But she also learned what it's like to be a student these days.
Any kind of story? Can you choose what kind of story you read?
They give you a whole bunch of different kinds of stories, and they give you parts of a story.
And Sherry is a guest teacher for a day here with Mrs. Weasler's class, giving students a change of pace and an up-close and personal look at a professional in another field. But it's also a day of adult learning.
It gives us a chance to, or the teacher a chance to, you know, see other jobs and see what other people are doing, and it also lets those people come in and meet our students. So.
Jeremiah is wondering what he wants to do for a living. Today was a chance for him to narrow down the options.
When you talk to them, they tell you about what they want to do, and then you're like, I don't know yet.
If you want to do it, you can do it. And I really enjoy the give and take and trying to make a difference in what we're doing.
Next door, Dave Munson is taking the opportunity to get back into the classroom and explain to these 6th graders how and why he became a representative.
I'm good at debating. I like to argue my points, and my mom said I'd be good at that, and so I decided that I'd ask him about that and see, because it'd probably be something I'd like.
And Dave is learning how these students have changed since he was a teacher about 17 years ago.
You're learning what young people are like today, and you're seeing the different perspective. I think they're more open and more willing to share what, you know, and ask you questions, and so I just think there's more openness today.
And he's hoping these students will be open to his message of never giving up, because Dave says he believes that they can reach any goal if they work hard enough. In Sioux Falls, Cammie Milton, News 5.
The city of Yankton has a new mayor, and her honor's name is Jean Hunhoff. Hunhoff becomes the first woman ever to be mayor of Yankton, but she said today that's no big deal. Jean Hunhoff replaces Terry Crandall, who decided not to seek re-election last year. The Yankton City Commission elected Jean Hunhoff to the mayoral job today. She is in her 2nd term as a Yankton City Commissioner right now. The South Dakota Make-A-Wish Foundation is making a wish come true for itself with a dream home that will make dreams come true for some deserving kids in the future. The Make-A-Wish people broke ground today on an 1,100 square foot home in southwest Sioux Falls. The home, built by volunteer labor with totally donated materials, will sell for about $75,000. That money will then go into the Make-A-Wish Foundation Trust to provide money for 2 additional wishes every year for children suffering life-threatening diseases. And Make-A-Wish knows what most of the wishes from those kids will be.
Disney World. Kids in South Dakota just would do anything to go to Disney World, and most of them have never been there, never had an opportunity to go to Disney World. And Disney World and Give Kids the World is a facility down there that really helps us in the cost of it. They kind of subsidize a little bit of it too.
Besides Disney World, Knipe says children's wishes include computers, toys, and playground equipment. 5 children who had their wish come true already, along with Sioux Falls Mayor Gary Hansen, helped to break ground on the dream house today, the one that will make other dreams come true. Well, we can apparently count ourselves lucky to have to contend only with daily deluges of rain these days. Look what the people around Auburn, Nebraska, near Omaha, faced last night. This incredible scene was taped on a home video camera by Rich Wilson. You can see 2 tornadoes touching down at the same time. The storms destroyed several buildings on nearby farms, but there were no injuries. The storms rumbled through the Auburn area at about 8 last night. And also, we have some more amateur video to show you tonight. This one, early tonight, a tornado touching down in northern Illinois. This dramatic home video shows the tornado just forming. There were as many as 5 like this one on the ground at any one time. The twisters turned over 6 tractor-trailer rigs and as many as 12 cars on Interstate 55. In Salisbury, Illinois, a mobile home was overturned. 1 person hurt there. At least 6 homes south of Athens destroyed. A school lost its roof. Utility poles, power lines all downed, and the destruction spread through 6 Illinois counties. Whoever videotaped that has some nerves of steel, don't they?
That's right. And also, we can add to that there were 26 other reports of tornadoes today. A very active day in the middle of the country, and we think things will quiet down. We'll try to talk about that, and plus the weekend forecast after this.
Centennial Carpets is moving to...
Certainly, in handling the